So much for those questions. Senator Padilla, I think, was there earlier, and he's come back. Well, thanks for joining us, and you're recognized now. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly glad to be here today and to hear from our witnesses on the issue of PFAS and CERCLA liability, because addressing PFAS pollution has been a priority of mine since I joined the Senate. And just this morning, I spoke to and heard from a number of water agencies at the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies, where this was a key topic of conversation. And we've been tracking the issue very closely since EPA first issued their proposal to designate 2 of the most widely used PFAS as hazardous substances under CERCLA. California is facing numerous threats to our drinking water and sanitation infrastructure, from water supply challenges due to sustained droughts to water affordability challenges, which I've focused on as the chairman of the EPW subcommittee on water, fisheries, and wildlife, to the impacts of PFAS, lead, and other contaminants as well. So I see the challenges that California water systems are facing when it comes to investing in infrastructure and delivering on our promise, our obligation, frankly, to provide clean drinking water and wastewater services to every Californian and every American. So thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member Capito, for allowing us to have this conversation today, because this is a complex issue that deserves nuance and careful deliberation. Ultimately, I think we can all agree that we want to hold polluters responsible and accountable for their contamination, and we need to develop the plans to remove PFAS from our water systems. Now, Mr. Faber, I'm looking at a letter that you included in your testimony from EPA to members of Congress about EPA's efforts to develop an enforcement discretion policy to focus on PFAS manufacturers. Now, in the letter, EPA says they do not intend to pursue entities like water utilities or local fire departments, and they outline pathways for settlements to protect against third-party cost recovery claims. Can you talk about how EPA has historically used its enforcement discretion when dealing with utilities and municipalities, and what ways going forward may be able to protect them and other minimal contributors from third-party liability?
Thank you, Senator. And as EPA has indicated in this letter that you referred to, they do not plan to focus the responsibility for this PFAS contamination on water utilities. That's nothing new. It's been long-standing policy under EPA's municipal settlement policy, administrative settlement policy, by using Section 122 to quickly settle the liability of water utilities and other peripheral players, and to focus on those who are truly responsible for creating the pollution caused by hazardous substances. So I think the other thing I'll just quickly mention is we have not yet seen the enforcement discretion policy that will accompany this final rule. And so it seems to me that it would be something Congress would want to see before asking whether to amend in an unprecedented way CERCLA to address a single chemical. The other thing I'll just quickly mention is we filed a Freedom of Information Act request this morning to get all of the settlements ever that EPA has ever completed with water utilities and landfills, so that we can show you the receipts, so that we can show you that for as long as EPA has exercised its authority under 122 and 113, that they have quickly resolved the liability of water utilities and landfills to focus on those who should be responsible, the polluters.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, I too have heard, as all of you have, from water utilities and others about the potential for truly responsible parties like a 3M or DuPont, who have been held liable for response costs, to try to deflect by bringing in water utilities or other entities into these third-party lawsuits. Ms. Bowers, I know this was discussed earlier in the hearing already, but your written testimony outlines the EPA enforcement discretion wouldn't necessarily protect covered entities in this scenario. Can you walk us through what the options would be for water utilities in the scenario where a liable party brought them into a third-party contribution claim?
Sure. Thank you, Senator. Just to make sure that I understand the question, this would be in an instance where a water utility has been brought in to an enforcement action, not by EPA, but this would be a third-party contribution.
Correct, the truly liable, in my
Sure.
opinion.
So if in that instance EPA has not entered into a settlement resolving that utility's liability under CERCLA, then that utility could still be liable under CERCLA, assuming no other exemptions apply. As I mentioned before, some of those other exemptions and defenses could potentially be relevant in this context. So how that could work is if another entity has either incurred cleanup costs or has itself been the subject of enforcement action or has resolved its liability, that entity would have the opportunity to file what's called a third-party contribution claim. So they may, as part of litigation or as part of a new lawsuit, file a lawsuit against other potentially responsible parties. And as I mentioned, if those parties have not themselves resolved their liability to EPA or a state under CERCLA, then they could still be subject to suit.
Okay, so something else to look for in the proposed rule going forward. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Padilla, thanks.